Okay, for a long time, I've been saying that if Donald Trump had just given a damn about the pandemic, he would have won election. But what do I know? I'm not like his campaign manager or anything. But it turns out his former campaign manager believes the same thing, because here is Brad Parscale on with Martha MacCallum, and here is the mistake he thinks Trump made that lost him the election.
Why not try to make a bigger appeal to some of the women voters who had maybe changed their mind or maybe had been turned off by some of the president's actions? Why not try to drive up the Catholic vote, for example, which the president lost some ground on this time around?
1-2% possibly we lost of suburban families, right? The men and women in the suburbs, Philly suburbs, Atlanta suburbs. I think that goes to one thing. And I think it was a decision on COVID to go for opening the economy versus public empathy. And I think a young family with a young child who were scared to take them back to school wanted to see an empathetic president and an empathetic Republican Party. And I think that, and I said this multiple times, and he chose a different path. And I don't think anything's wrong with this. I love him. But like, we had a difference on this. I thought we should have public empathy. I think people were scared. I walked around people and watched people walk around me. Not like 2 years ago, and they just don't walk next to me because I'm Brad Parscale, but walk around me because I got a mask on now, and they just don't want to get COVID. I can see how waitresses stand a little farther from the table. People are scared. And I think if he would have been publicly empathetic, he would have won by a landslide then. I think he could have leaned into it instead of run away from it.
So it sounds like you think that was the biggest error, empathy over COVID.
Policy error.
JR, what do you think about that?
I mean, I feel like you said something similar, that it would have been pretty easy for him if he just did 1 to 2 things that at least like faked like he cared about the American people. So there's truth to it, especially since considering the fact that the number of votes that he did get, even though he literally gave a middle finger to gave a middle finger to the entire country and said, it is what it is. Really? Yeah. Well, I'm safe. You're not. Like, it was constant how much he told the American people, I just don't care about you. Hey, you're on your own. He openly said it. So, and they still voted for him in this large amount. So they still would have had those hateful people voting for him, and some certain percentage of people who somehow got fooled by him the first time to think that he really gave a damn about anyone. It would have worked.
Yeah, I think, look, I think even specifically what he is talking about there, just being more like showing empathy, I think probably could have won him the election if he had pretended to care. I will point out though, by the way, what Brad Parscale is doing there is, in theory, it's criticizing the president, which is something, although he's gonna backtrack in just a moment. So let's give him some limited credit for that. And saying he made a mistake on COVID. But do you notice the mistake that he's saying he made? Like, he focused on reopening the economy rather than showing empathy. Okay, but like there's kind of another element. Maybe stop people from dying. Like, he keeps saying he could have shown empathy. Okay, I want empathy, but I also don't want my grandma to die. Like, he didn't acknowledge that the massive death toll had anything to do about it. The only thing he seems to believe is you could either have a mountain of corpses or a mountain of corpses with Trump sitting on the top saying, I'm really sorry about this. No, you could have less corpses. That's a possibility. Maybe you could have not pursued a strategy that resulted in needless tens of thousands of Americans dying off into the future. It's still, that strategy is still going on, by the way. But he doesn't acknowledge that that's a possibility, that less people could have died. And Martha MacCallum's follow-ups don't say anything about the death toll. Because again, it's still Fox, and they have to pretend that people didn't die. And if they did die, it's probably their fault, and it was probably Bill Gates. It has nothing to do with COVID. You don't know about COVID.
Yeah, well, that was a step too far. You can't say, let's stop people from dying, because you don't care about people. You're supposed to just give the bare minimum, which is say you're sorry. That would help. And it honestly, again, it would have. That's not, their brand is not to help people. Their brand is to act like they care.
Yeah. Now, like I said, he still wants to be in good with Trump, especially considering all of his troubles in his personal life. So he can only criticize him so much. So very shortly after, he goes back to talking about Trump in the dear leader sort of way. So here is Brad Parscale on Trump.
There's also things he did great. It's hard to see that now when things are so close, but he built one of the greatest economies in history. He wouldn't have been close if he wouldn't have been that far. I still think he's going to go down as one of the greatest presidents. I think he got one choice away from being perfect, and that was, do I want to open the country and be the economic, or do I want to be publicly empathetic? And I think it goes right into thing, because this is one of the most empathetic men when you're sitting next to him. He cares about you, asks about your family, all that stuff. All you do is get on stage and do that.
Yeah, I mean, he was kind of right about what Trump could have done to win, but he's a crazy person. He's a crazy person with a very, very small face. But anyway, more importantly, he made one wrong choice. Trump did. Okay, Brad, thank you for acknowledging that he should have shown empathy, but that's crazy. You're a crazy
because
person.
he shows his empathy, because if you stand there next to him, he'll ask you about your family. That's it? Really? That's it? I ask people all the time, hey, how you doing? I don't listen when they tell me how they're doing, because honestly, I don't care how they're doing. It's just one of those niceties that humans, and that's not just me, by the way. I'm not just trying to show you guys how much of a mean person I am. But if it's just some general random person and you're president of the United States, you don't really care what Joe Williams in Iowa his issues are right then. You just, especially this guy, you really don't. You're supposed to take their stories and use them for yourself. That's what politicians do. Yeah. Now, I know I'm painting with a broad brush. Politicians really don't care what each individual person says to them. Sorry, I'm sure some do at lower levels, but when you're at this level, it's just how many of these types of people can I coalesce to make an argument for myself? It's a it's a selfish game. It really is, and it's supposed to not be, but that's just not what we have anymore. So. Yeah. He asked how your family, so that shows how much of an empathetic great guy he is. You remember Herschel Walker at the RNC? He said there was this one time Trump showed up at Disneyland. I took his kids in mind to Disney World or something. And you know what? Doggone it, Donald showed up. He was there. That's the congratulations, that he showed up where his kids were and hung out with you when you took his kids to an amusement park. Oh, he's a good guy. I didn't think he was gonna show up. And he showed up. What an incredible guy. He showed up with his kids. Oh my God. That's
some
the
people have low bars for, yeah. Yeah, and by the way, so you say that he asked about your family. Okay, but let me ask a follow-up question. Does he ask specifically about like the 14 to 20-year-old female parts of your family, or is it more broad than that? Because one is kind of endearing, the other not so much.
We've definitely heard stories about that. Yes, we have.
Yeah, let me give you one more really sad part of this, because of course Brad Parscale, who used to be like the Grand Moff on the Death Star, is now reduced to this. Brad Parscale said he and Trump haven't had any contact recently, a silence that left Parscale emotional during Tuesday's interviews. Quote, it is pretty hurtful, but it's probably just as much my fault as his. I love that family, and I gave every inch of my life to him. Every inch. Every inch of my life isn't an expression. What are you talking about? Yeah. But anyway, it's probably my fault that he doesn't talk to me. What, you're prostrating yourself on the mainstream media to get him to talk to you. No, you're trying. I think it's his fault. I think he doesn't want to talk to you.
This is brutal. Wow, again, it comes back. This is such an abusive relationship. No matter what he does to you, or how he treats you, or how much he ignores you now, it must be my fault. Yeah, sure, he made fun of me. Yeah, sure, he called me names. Yeah, sure, he ousted me. Yeah, he potentially destroyed my career. But it's probably my fault. Really?
It's so sad. It's so sad. Never I want to be specific. There are politicians that I like, that I would like to have on the show, but we haven't talked in a while. It's their fault, because I want to talk to them. I didn't do anything wrong. It's their fault.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.